All right, here we go. So I don't know what the heck's going on with my phone, man. It just like shut off in the middle of a group. I don't know what the deal is. I'm going to get better technology. I have better technology. Actually, if you want to check out like Family Group cut up in 6-minute pieces, go to uturn.net. Everything's on there. But anyway, for people who were tuning in or who like to tune in on Monday nights, I am going to do something different because Purdue Pharma sabotaged my group tonight. Just to show Purdue Pharma that they cannot get their way with Rich Jones. All right, so what am I going to do? I'm going to go through the group on my car ride home. A really short story version, a summary, if you will, hitting the highlights. All right, so let's just do this thing. All right, started off group with the basics. What is addiction? What is recovery? What are boundaries? How do you set a team? With addiction, it's dopamine, right? Dopamine is released every time you do something pleasurable. Well, dopamine is released when you do something pleasurable. The problem is with drugs, too much dopamine is released. Too much dopamine is released. It's dangerous. The brain overcompensates, shuts off the production of dopamine. Look, if I had a picture of the brain, you would see this, like normal brain, all lit up. Dopamine depleted brain, it's all dark and dank. It's like a Batman movie. So you can't do that. So what do? You endlessly chase drugs. All right, so that is what it is. You're not dealing with a rational person. The second thing is, what does family do? Build a team. Get a team. And then start working on boundaries. What are boundaries? Boundaries are essentially saying no. What do you need to do when you're going to set a boundary? Mean what you say what you mean, but don't say it mean. All right, now let's get to some new stuff. Let's talk about some new stuff. The new stuff we talked about, we really focused on, we hammered, take care of yourself. We hammered the idea of, as you take care of yourself, you increase the likelihood that your loved one will actually find recovery, but you deserve the help. And we went through this thing like caregiver stress. We compared it to Alzheimer's, taking care of an Alzheimer's patient or somebody with Parkinson's. And basically, like, you're never off the clock. It's called the 36-hour day. And all the issues that can happen, all the physical issues, all the emotional issues, all the mental health issues, your own substance use, that type of stuff. So if you're a family member, you got to take care of yourself. Then we got to, how do you take care of yourself? And this is where I kicked in positive psychology. And I threw up my slide, and some of you heard me say this. Here are the facts around happiness. This was done by global surveys. They went around the world and they asked people about life satisfaction, happiness, stress level. And what they found was there were some common themes that we were able to tap into and develop interventions for. The first thing is there's a happiness formula. And the happiness formula goes like this. There's a set point. That's what you're born with, just personality. Some people are born happier than others. Some people are born grumpier than others, etc., etc. There are different nationalities. The Scottish are the grumpiest people on the planet. That there are different countries. Costa Rica tends to be happy. It's just the way it is. That's called set point. Then circumstances. Circumstances only make up 10% of your happiness. And people always say, wait, Rich, I don't buy that. That is not true. Circumstances mean a lot more. If my kid is sick, or if I'm dealing with active addiction, or I'm sick myself, or I'm having financial difficulties, I'm not as happy. Yes, in the moment you're not as happy. In the short term, but in the long term, the big picture, it's only 10%. Ups and downs, ups and downs. You know what, this too shall pass type shit. You got that? So 10% is circumstances. Then, this is the big stuff. 40% of happiness is based on voluntary control. Things that you can do on any given day to improve your mood and reduce your stress. So that's what we talked about. The first thing we talked about was this thing called emotional contagion. And that is the idea that you can catch another person's mood. And the advice I gave, takeaway number one, is if you are dealing with this issue, with a mental health crisis, with a substance use crisis, you need to be real careful about who you're around. There are two types of people in the world. Somebody walks in the room and everybody's happy, and somebody walks out of the room and everybody's happy. You want to be around the first group, people who lift you up. You have no room in your life for negative people, even if they're families. Cut them loose, kick them to the curb. Emotional contagion, get around positive people. The second thing we talked about was, how do I make sense? How do I make sense of suffering? How do I frame this up in my mind, or how do I stay focused, and what do I think of the world, and how do I explain the world given the fact that you're dealing with this very serious health issue? And we talked about 3 different ways of looking at things. One is just overly optimistic, the optimistic person, the person who's like, everything's going to be okay no matter what. You're like on the Titanic, and they're like, the Titanic is sinking. You're like, nah, we're good. This is the world's greatest ship. Nah, we're good. We're good, man. I don't need that. I don't need that lifeboat. Back off. So that's just overly optimistic. The second is pessimistic. Everything sucks. Eeyore was pessimistic. He's like, hey, Pooh, everything sucks, Pooh. All that kind of stuff. All right. And the third, this is where you want to be. It's called tragic optimism or pessimistic optimism. And basically it goes like this. Everything's not great right now. Things suck, but I believe it could get better. And I believe at the end of the day, I'm going to be okay. Do you see the difference? Because the problem with overly optimistic is you set yourself up for the fall when the expectations are too high. The third thing we talked about related to this was, it was more on the metaphysical kind of like philosophical tip. And it wasn't necessarily an intervention. It was more about a worldview. And how do you approach the absurdities of life, the bad things that happen? How do you do suffering? I'm real into this right now. I watch this. I watch videos on this. I learn about this. I read about this. People are going to be faced with bad circumstances. Life is a chronic and fatal disease. You experience loss. You experience loss of love. You experience guilt. You experience failure. You experience all these absurdities of life, all these terrible things, and how do you deal with it? How do you choose to approach it? What is your worldview? What is your mechanism for getting through that? You know, basically it's that I'm going to suffer well. I'm going to find a way that even when it's hitting the fan, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you the story. Not tonight, but I'm going to tell you the story of the last 18 months of my life. Really actually last 12, starting Father's Day 2018, and the odyssey that my family went on around healthcare issues, around some emotional health issues, around loss in the family, around living arrangement issues, around the most serious health concern that we've ever faced in one of our children. I'm going to tell you the story about that and how I dealt with suffering. But that's for another day. For now, peace out. And Purdue Pharma, good try. Peace out.